Okay, so when we come to our first category of daylight increasing or darkness increasing, Pluto, Capricorn, Aquarius, Pisces, Aries, Taurus, Gemini, the daylight increasing, there's a fear I'll never be able to do my own thing, and there's an absolute control to have to do my own thing. Don't take it away from me, I gotta fight for this, or there's a fight against it, or someone's interfering with my freedoms. So right now, we want net neutrality, we want freedom on the net, we wanted a world wide web that's open, and it's changing. It's like we want it, but there are controls coming in that are not making it totally free. So we have a battle, there's an undercurrent of battle. These undercurrents, the power of truth is going more and more to what individuals are doing, because Pluto's in Capricorn, just starting in the daylight increasing side, but it's still mostly in the nighttime is greater side. So we'll come up, but the momentum is to try and make room for personal freedoms, to see some personal freedom and to be frightened and threatened by it. It's like the rebel base against the Death Star. If you're looking at Star Wars, it's like, can't be there, but it's there. What are we going to do? And the fight against the system is going to increase for next 100 or more years. That's the Pluto. We've come to Pluto when the darkness is increasing for the last, well, almost 100 years. Let me just go back to the exact date. I used to have it memorized, but I don't. Yeah, Pluto went into Cancer in 1913, First World War. Into Leo for the Second World War. 55, 56, end of the Korean War, but that was a cold. Then it was the beginning of the fear, the Cold War and the fear of Russia and stuff. Then in 70, it went into China actually became accepted and recognized in the war. So anyway, so if you follow the wars through, you'll see them. If you follow the inflationary things with Neptune, you'll see them. But this nighttime, daylight increasing, right now Pluto's in Capricorn, it's really in the socially strong signs. There's not a lot of room for individual freedoms. We're looking around and everything's the world's being controlled. And individuals are taking a hard hit of it, but there's still a momentum to try and be a little bit free, to try and get off the grid or try and do some things independently. But still, independence means having your cell phone or having your car, having your computer, and having things you want to do with it, but having all those things has a greater commitment behind it. If you have a car, if you have a cell phone, if you have a computer, if you have a TV, how can you complain about the pollution in the world? You're making it. You're justifying it. So how to fix it? Okay, but the Pluto is the daylight increasing. It's the power to try and be more free, more independent, but it's really at its sudden roots now. We've set up such a global world, we're trying to control the world. How do we allow for personal growth and freedom? And what's going to be personal education when the group consensus is so strong? So if we look at the nighttime increase, the darkness increasing, which goes from the last 100 years, 1930 till about, where are we? Yeah, until 2008, 1913 to 2008, the Blue into Capricorn. That whole century was tied up with, we're being individuals, but we're trying to belong. We're trying to do what's right for the world. We're trying to evolve. We're trying to expand the car, the telephone, the airplane, which were all discovered in 1892. Then they were built up and different wars were come along. They expanded more and more. People in the, well, during the first part of the century, of last century, was Pluto in Cancer is the fear about security, fear about the homeland, fear about and there were wars fought over this homeland and not homeland. But everything was much more individualized than made the group. You know, like, so in Leo too, Pluto was in Leo. Everyone went to fight the war, to be the winner, to have to win, to have their way on all sides. But all of these wars were bringing up increasing need to belong, or to put the world in order, or to become part of the team, to try and make it work together. So it was very independent and harsh in Cancer. In Leo, there was a lot of pride of individual countries that were fighting it out to get it. In Virgo, it was the technological revolution. It was the cars, planes, different things, all the technology coming up, who controls it, who doesn't. In Libra, air, easily, but just from the conscious, you could say the consciousness of the world, from the telephone up to the transistor, to the computer, to the home computer, to the World Wide Web. The world consensus has totally changed and become a vast thing, far more than individual opinion or the individual idea. So as the darkness increases, responsibilities have increased. The world needs this, we have to build up this, we have to do this, we have to make this is going to work for everyone. And the web really, wow, we really got a way of contacting everyone. At the same time, that same ability by phones to contact everyone is like war technology, where suddenly now you can know what's happening a few blocks away during a war, and it requires a whole different type of warfare. And what will happen, there'll be controls over how cell phones and webs are being used. It's inevitable. And as soon as the controls are set up, there are going to be people trying to fight it. But the majority has been building up to create the global society, the global community, the global world, for better or worse. That attitude of doing it, and of the group or the team becoming stronger and stronger. This momentum towards group responsibilities, or that it has to be taken care of, we have to do this, there's pollution, there's climate change, or so these things have to be taken care of. But at the same time, in the building this up, in building up the group phenomena, there was a lot of pollution and harsh things, and not good things were done. Who owns it, who doesn't own things? So I'll just leave it there. Just a sense of the increasing, darkness increasing, and the Pluto being on that side. There's the confrontation to have to be free, to have to be able to relate to who you want. That's another thing, from having the old conservative home after a war in the teens and 20s, to when Pluto went into Libra and you started to be able to have gay relationships, and Pluto moving up to having gay marriages. Then AIDS came along, gay marriages, multicultural relationships. Boy, things have really changed from the old colonial separatism or control to a much more eclectic social network around the world. So some good, but a lot of power struggles around these things. And each one of these signs is a stage in that process that a certain generation will carry on. And we'll see through that lens. Yes, if you want to say this more exactly, you could go and get the exact dates when Pluto changed each sign and look at the face of Pluto in each sign, and you'll see this much more clearly. But it's a research. You can look for sports, you can look for business, you can look for military, you look for governments, and you can see how things have been changing. And the world is not the same place it was, like 40 years ago, 50 years ago. So when the next category, when Pluto is darkness and greater, and Pluto is daylight is greater, this is very easy to see. This is when Pluto is the powers to be my own independent, I'm doing my own independent thing. This is from, this would have been, just trying to go back here. It goes back to 1850 or earlier, to when Pluto went into Aries, right up till 1970. When Pluto went into Libra. So those are the people born then, really strong, independent people doing their own thing. One person influences the world, one makes a show, one person lives in a castle. It was all individual stories. And there were countries, there were businesses, but they were usually more independently owned. The power was on, I can't give up my freedom. I've got to fight to do this myself. I'll fight for this war. I'll fight for this cause because it's saving my home. No one's going to take this away from me. So this was the Pluto in Aries, Taurus, Gemini, Cancer, Leo, Virgo. But the minute 1970, when Pluto went into Libra, a whole different factor came in. The darkness was greater. The team consensus, the group consensus, the global consensus, the global need became more important than the individual rights. So a whole new political era of, I'm saying political because we can see it like that. Pluto is a confrontation. We see it through how the politics go, how we're living inside the system or not living inside that system. And it is colored by where you look from. So we're looking from North America. We saw the beginning of feminism, of more forced equal rights of, if you're going to get married, you're going to sign some kind of disclaimer contract so that you don't have to, you don't have the claim on the other person's things. It changed the very structure. It disenchanted the structure of marriage and made it, no, you get your, sign your contract before you get married to protect what's yours. So this, in China, it was the 30 years of the Maoist era where, like, it was through this change in the military where the consensus, if you didn't believe in the whole system, you were killed, you were shot, you were sent out to the farms, nobody was allowed to study. Things were beginning to be really group controlled, communally. So as Pluto's built up to the Capricorn, we're sitting looking at the strength of the communal countries that work as teams that are like China, for example, versus America and the free independent countries or democracy countries. And there's a battle, and the democracy countries don't look like they're doing so good right now, because the idea of the world having to have rules, having to counter pollution, having to counter climate change, having to counter, so many controls are coming in that this global consensus is there. So the team, the group, the country, the free trade, the trade arrangements around the world, the globalization has been the strong factor from 1970 until about 2050. It's a predominating force, and people born under that have that attitude within, and the fears about those attitudes. It's certainly very different. So the innocence lost and the truth gained about relationships, sharing, trusting, working with other countries, and that's the Pluto in the night darkness is greater. Even though politics, other things were going on when Pluto was in the daylight is greater, then the fears and the blocks that we weren't good enough, or I have to do this myself, I got to go climb that mountain, I got to fight against this, it really was a self-centered power struggle. And individuals were more fighting against each other more than the consensus coming down on having to be imposed on the world to fix climate change, to fix things, to stop pollution, to start cut down on emissions. Like, there are global needs coming in to impose on the individuals. So this is going on now. In 60 years or more, Pluto will start going into Aries and Neptune will be out here. The emphasis will be how to break away from the structure and get some freedom out of it. It'll change again, but right now it's in Big Brother social communal areas. So the only reason to go through this example, it's only my take on it, but I'm trying to do this to show you the nature of the Pluto confrontation and fear and the time that someone's born in, how that generation picks up this. But it can be, it's spread around, it's happening all around the world. But what that, in Pluto in relationships in China, we were only allowed to have one baby or forced abortions. This was the Pluto in Libra and Scorpio. This was huge, horrendous, but normal over there, not here. Still a battle over abortions or not abortions, and what the group believes versus what an individual can do is still a strong, with Pluto in the darkness is greater, the gang rules, the team rules, the group, the majority rules, and the individuals are out of luck. And, so democracy is the law of the gang, and the majority rules, unless there's rules made to protect the individuals or to protect individual freedoms. Anyways, but so we see glimpses of this, and as they begin to touch planets, we see it more in the houses, we'll see it more with the aspects. Pluto, that we have a presence that's connected to what's real in the world, what's real spiritually, what's not. What's new, what's true, what's not.